So we're gonna keep going, guys, because since we started a few minutes late, we're going to keep going with the next panel, which is very cool because Evan Shapiro is going to lead it. So I'm sure he's going to ask you to yell something. This is his third introduction, but I'm going to change it up a little bit, a little bit more personal side. Like Alex was saying in the first panel, you have people that you're going to admire along the way, and you're going to want to try to work with them and find ways to work with them. And that's kind of what happened with Evan. When I was working at the Cable Center, we were developing this new lecture series, and we kept seeing his name in the trades. At the time, he was with Court TV, but people kept talking about him in different trades like multi-channel news and broadcasting and cable and variety. So we knew this guy was shaking things up a bit. And so that's how we kind of targeted him, and we stalked him. And now, 12 years later, we're still working together. So, what I hope for you is that you all get to work with somebody who supports you, who is in your corner, who has your back and never asks for anything, who will tell you the truth even though it hurts, who will guide you in the right direction, and who always raises their hand and says, yes, I will help. So would you please welcome back to the stage Evan Shapiro.
Hello? Sorry about that. We did not know you were expecting us. So I'm Evan Shapiro, I'm moderating this panel. We've got a really great group of people here to talk about. It's called, producing for the disruptive age, and really what this is meant to be is these are three people, each of whom create. And they create in different ways, they create in different forms, and they've each been doing it for different lengths of time. So I'm going to go down and introduce each one of you, but then if you could, Amy, I'll start with you. So Amy Emmerich, who's the Chief Content Officer at Refinery 29. Everybody here know what Refinery 29 is? Clap if you know what Refinery. So everything you think you know about that brand, Amy has been a part of creating. Is that a fair statement?
For 4 years.
Yeah, for 4 years. Prior to that, you worked at Viacom. Yes. You've worked all throughout the industry. You've been a marketer, a promoter, a content creator, and really somebody who has, everywhere you've gone, created your own kind of operation, sense of energy, sense of purpose, and really helped dictate the brands wherever you've gone. So at one point in time, you graduated from college. I want to know, what did you study in college? Okay. What is the one life lesson you learned during those 4 times that you carry with you today? And if you had to describe what you do, how would you do that?
So interesting. Okay, so I did go to Iona College right over the Whitestone Bridge because it was 15 minutes from my mom's house.
What's their mascot?
What?
What's their mascot?
A Gael.
A Gael?
Very, like Catholic.
The Gael?
Like a Gael.
Okay.
Like a little Irish guy, like a fighting.
Oh, okay, got it.
It was a very big commuter school, believe it or not. So I did live there because I wanted to get out of College Point, Queens. But I needed to be able to commute back and forth because we didn't have much money. So I couldn't go really far away because I'd never be able to fly back home. But I needed to get the hell out. So I went to Iona College. I went there for film. And then when I got there my freshman year, they dropped the film program. So that was awesome. And then I went into broadcasting, which was...
Where?
At Iona.
Oh, sorry, there. Got it.
It's school.
Got
So
it.
then I majored in broadcasting back when there was tape, and we had what do we used to call this thing that we had to swirl the tape on, the beta machine,
yeah.
and it was fun. And but we did radio. There wasn't even a TV studio there yet. It was like really small. But I was a hustler, and the good part about being so close to not just my mom, but was the city. So I started interning, I think my late junior year, beginning of senior year, at the Rosie O'Donnell show. And that meant that I was getting up to go to work at 4 in the morning when all of my friends were coming home from the bars. I literally would see them passing. Like they were still coming home drunk, and I was like dressed up on my way to the train station. But I had always hustled. So I always say it's positive hustling.
What'd you do at the Rosie O'Donnell show?
I started off as an intern. I became a PA, a production assistant, and then I became an associate producer before I left. And that was like at the peak time of that TV show. I was a big fan of hers. I like stalked her to get the job, and everyone who worked there to get the internship. But I think the thing I took from school to that was just the positive hustling, that I had to make some sacrifices in order to do it. I was missing a lot of good nights out. I was working on a lot of nights and weekends because we didn't get paid for our internships back then. And I think we got like free lunch at NBC in a voucher. They didn't even give you the cash. So you couldn't even pocket the cash. You had to use the voucher to eat. But I was just constantly working, and you had to have a smile on your face and be willing to do anything.
And
when
you're
you were
still
an intern.
hustling. You're still hustling.
I've never stopped.
Now you're the chief content officer at Refinery 29, and you're still hustling. We were talking about that
Still
just earlier
hustling.
today. Still hustling that hard, right?
Yeah, I'm working just as hard now as I feel like I did when I was in college. It has not stopped. So this is not for the faint of heart, the new media business. I do oversee all the content at Refinery. We have an originals business, and then there's video, editorial, photo design, a commercial creative group, which ideates everything that we work with client partners on, and an events
And you
business.
run that all.
I mean, it really is a universe where there's entrepreneurs, and everybody who works with me
But that
runs
whole
businesses,
that
but it
whole
reports up to
flywheel,
me.
that whole operation
Yeah.
is under you, which is
Yes.
why you're so stressed.
Yeah, which is why I'm...
But what if you had to describe in 25 words or less what you do? Could you do that?
I think that I'm a tough love cheerleader to make sure the people who build the company believe in the mission and spread that throughout all the content we do. Was that 25
And that's,
questions?
well, I mean,
25
you've
words?
run machines for a long time, and so that kind of tough love cheerleader, I think, is actually a pretty apt description of what I know of you myself. Fran Tirado, yes?
Yes.
So Fran is what I would call kind of the quintessential modern day Renaissance artist for the digital age. He creates podcasts. He's a multimedia hyphenate. You were just in Rome for 48 hours.
It's true.
Interviewing who?
Claire Foy for the new Girl with the Dragon Tattoo movie. She was fantastic.
And your conclusion on Claire Foy?
I was that she is one movie away from becoming a certified gay icon. You know, it's just science, really. Yeah. I told her, I was like, you need to play a Disney villain, and then you're set. You've been initiated into the canon of gay iconography. And she's like, that's a great plan. And so, yeah.
And who were you doing that for? I'm just curious.
I was doing it for Into magazine, which is a queer news magazine for, queer culture.
And so, I mean, that's a big part of what Fran does is he pontificates on pop culture through a certain lens. You've got a podcast called Food for Thought, which is not spelled the way it sounds.
Spelled THOT. It's a very important distinction.
I have called it the Algonquin Roundtable, only it's gayer.
And, right, yes. I refer to it as NPR on poppers, but that also works.
There was another one, though. Wait.
Another one was it's like The View, but not as gay.
Right, exactly. That's my favorite one. And then Queerly Beloved is an anthology limited series documentary podcast about chosen families of LGBTQIA folk. Yes, for Vice.
Yes, that's correct.
And how did that idea come about?
Vice approached me, actually. I got kind of lucky. They approached me with this like fully fledged concept. I'm someone who has been really passionate about what it means to have non-biological family, what it means to like find family outside of the people that you were born into. And they came to me with this fully fledged documentary idea, and I was like, I'm sold. It's like, absolutely. So.
And how did they know to come to you? How did they find you?
Oh gosh, I mean, I'm really easy to stalk on the internet, and I've been in the game.
What's your primary platform after podcasting?
Oh God, it's hard. I'm on Twitter more, but a lot of people find me from Instagram. But I'm just easy to stalk in general. Yeah,
but did they listen to Food for Thought and find you through that, or
they had listened to Food for Thought. I think I've been in like the gay mafia for like 5 years, so I think they had just put a call out into the gay mafia, and then it came back to me.
What's that induction ceremony look like?
You know, a lot of Carly Rae Jepsen.
We'll do that later, yeah. So what, I mean, if you had to describe what you do, so you have podcasts, but you're also very big on social. You're a for-hire interviewer. You are an entrepreneur, I would say. You're a studio unto yourself. But like when your mom asks you or someone in your life asks you, what do you do? What do you say?
Maybe not my mom, but I say I'm a full-time homosexual. And because it's literally what I do. I mean, I'm gay for a living.
You're a professional homosexual.
I mean, all my checks come during Pride Month, so keep an eye out. Next month's World Pride, if you want to hire me, you let me know. But yeah, I mean, I usually just say I'm a writer, podcaster, and full-time homosexual,
And
CEO of Fran Incorporated.
And you are making a living doing this. This is your full-time hustle. You're not waiting tables to make ends meet. You're making a living doing this.
Barely, but yes.
Cool. Do you have an agent?
What was that?
Do you have an agent?
Soon I will.
Okay, cool. So Joe Cilio, who here listens to podcasts? Raise your hand. Does everybody here know what a podcast network is? Raise your hand if you do. So Joe created his own went from being a theater student at Tisch at NYU to, within a very short period of time, creating a comedy troupe and then a podcast network that has 30 really great podcasts. Well, 25 really great podcasts on it. I'm kidding. And one of them, my favorite on there, is Food for Thought, of course. But Las Culturistas with Bowen Yang and Matt Yeager, which is an incredible podcast, and recently relaunched Thrilling Adventure Hour. So Joe, how do you go from being a thespian to at NYU to owning and operating a podcast network that has millions of downloads a month and selling ads and dealing with talent and all that kind of stuff? And what did you study in theater that made you think you could do that?
I went to theater school at NYU, and there I met, friends and people that inspired me and people that, made me want to continue being in the theater, and I loved doing the theater. And we did in college like a lot of plays, off-Broadway plays in basements. We went all, toured around, did festivals and all of that. And we loved creating, and we loved the creative process, and we loved who we worked with especially. But what happened is, theater, it's very, very expensive, and you have to pay for rehearsal space. You have to pay for, the theater. You have to pray to God people show up to your show. And sometimes, no matter, you can pour your heart into something, and we hope we still do, but you pour your heart into something and 10 people show up. And that's great, and that's fine, but, we just flirted originally. We're like, what if we tried podcasting? We take some of these people that we love and respect and that are geniuses as far as we're concerned, and now, luckily, fans are also concerned as well. They think that too. But we said, what can we, maybe podcasting can get us a broader audience. Maybe more people will tune in. So we essentially guessed. And yes, one of our first podcasts with like Las Culturistas with Matt Rogers and Bowen Yang. Bowen was my friend.
Matt Rogers.
Friend/acquaintance at that point from NYU, and I just knew he was the best in the biz. Now he writes for Saturday Night Live, et cetera, et cetera. But back then I was like, if we're doing a podcast network, even if it's fake, this guy's so funny, so talented. We have to get Bowen involved in any capacity, honestly. And that's one example out of like 4 or 5 shows that we sort of sussed out the people that we were inspired by, that we knew were very funny, and we wanted to just collaborate with them and work with them. And what happened is for a while we were this blend of theater and film and online videos and podcasts, but the podcast stuff sort of took off, and it took me in a really unique and unexpected direction from the theater world.
How did you learn how to make podcasts and produce them and get them out?
Everything I've learned, we learned from YouTube videos. Everything, and I now, as far as podcasting goes, I know how to do and handle and think about most things. But it's been like a 2-year-long process, and everything I've learned and everything my partners have learned is from literally looking at YouTube, watching some of the worst made videos you've ever seen in your life. Also, we learn by just pretending we know what we're doing. This is the best thing to do. Yeah. You just pretend. you set yourself up because you know you're going to get yelled at or like be in trouble in some capacity. So you just like, you deal with that however you know best how, and you do whatever you got to do to know that. And then you literally just pretend, and then luckily in my industry, and I'm sure in other industries, everybody else also doesn't know what they are talking about. So there's eventually some sort of common ground is sort of, at least in podcasting, it's a fake new thing. So they pretend they know what they're talking about, I pretend I know what I'm talking about, and eventually there's some sort of collaboration in the middle financially, and we all sort of, pretend and cross our fingers and hope some dollars are there at the end of the equation. So,
and that's the media industry.
YouTube.
Pretty much. That's basically the last 30 years. I mean, there is, so the podcasting world, and I think you can attest to this, and you can attest to this on a broader scale, much like social media publishing and influencer advertising and branded content in audio and creation of content in all these platforms is basically a big hustle. And it continues to reinvent itself. And a lot of what's happening today has been happening over and over since the early days of cable and radio into what's happening now. I think Forever Dog, one of the best, and you can back me up on this, one of the things they're best known for is talent relations.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the network of talent that you draw in is really the unique selling proposition of who you are. So being known for that, being known for having an opinion and being out about it, and being known for one thing for Refinery 29 has been really powerful for you. If you had a lesson that you could give to these folks about discovering themselves and using that as a brand, because that seems to be important. The authentic nature of who you are has been central to your brand. What would that be? How do you discover what that is, and how do you maybe bottle that and market that out on the open market?
I was in advertising for a year. I quit almost exactly a year ago. And I think I quit or decided that I was going to quit the day that Trump tweeted about the transgender military ban. And I was sitting there like writing copy for like Banana Republic, and feeling my soul being sucked out of my body. And I was sitting there and I was like, this is wasted time. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm getting paid really well at this very comfortable desk job. It doesn't matter if I have healthcare benefits. It doesn't matter if I have any of these things. All these things all of a sudden feel very futile because any moment that I spent not advocating, creating content for, telling the stories of, documenting the lives of queer people is wasted time. So I think that in your own lives, and I'm very privileged to say that. Like, I kind of built up a profile for myself before I took the big leap. But when you reach that point in your life or something close to it, it's always worth it to take the leap, or to plan to take the leap, I think.
But what was step one? I mean, I think to a certain extent, you're known for a brand of content. To the point where Vice, a very kind of hot media brand in and of itself, called you to be an expert in a certain area on a project that wasn't even your idea. How do you put yourself out there? And I would actually throw that out to you. How do you become known for being in talent? How do you become known for being such a great brand ambassador that you're asked to be the brand, basically? So in your case, Fran, how did you? Yes, there's social media, but what's that first step to bottling yourself and putting yourself out there as a brand or a product or something on the market?
I always say that 80 to 90% of my success can be attributed to just dressing nice, being charming, and showing up to parties. Really, so much of the interactions and network that you create is just showing up to the parties that you're invited to, going to events as much as possible, asking people to drink dates, to coffee. I don't know the age of this group, but drink dates, coffee dates, whatever you feel comfortable with, and just meeting, putting yourself in front of as many people as possible. I am out 4 to 7 nights a week, either going to a party, going to an event, getting drinks with someone, getting drinks with multiple people in one night.
But there's a plan to it. It's not just haphazard, right? I mean, I would say that you're as much as sometimes you're not in love with networking. You and I had met on a panel. This is our 4th panel
We're panel
together.
buddies.
So you know how to work a media brand on your own behalf too. What is the first step to doing something like that, building a personal
Yeah, but the
brand?
joke for me was I never wanted it. So I think for me, I fell into a brand where I finally could be unapologetically myself. And, and I think that's really the trick is I wasn't as confident of who I was. I knew I was a hustler. I knew I could work hard and I was confident enough in my skills, but I was every other executive. And then I think I found an environment that allowed me to be as true to who I was and what I really wanted to surface. And I got to even change my physical appearance with that along the way. In a world where, for most executives at most companies, they want you to, there was a feeling in order to climb a ladder, you had to look the part. And I was trying to fit in, but always faking it. And you can only fake it to, you still got to be happy inside. Yeah. And I think I found a place where I became the physical manifestation of what Refinery promised to people, which is really you do you, and it's okay. And I just, so I was able to kind of become an activist executive at this business in a way that I couldn't have in many others. I did work at Vice, and I think Vice has a very good rebellion spirit about it, but at the time it was very big bro culture. And so a young female trying to have kids, it just wasn't the environment for me. So there was a little bit of, yes, I had to be and find my true voice and truly be myself. And then I had to find the right environment if I couldn't create it for myself, which I think you've done for yourself quite well. I wasn't going to be that. I had to find the right environment that wanted to support me and in doing that. And I don't think it was just the brand, but it's a brand for young women, young people, and I think the younger generation is ready for a no bullshit arena where we talk straight, truly share our lives, and they expect that from executives now too. So I kind of
the more authentic and the more true to yourself you are, the more happy you are. You said that, I say that a lot, that the happiest person actually does win. And that sounds like kumbaya and all that kind of touchy-feely stuff, but at the end of the day, if you are happy and you are satisfied, you are more productive, you are better at your job, you are remunerated well in order to exchange
and
on
also,
that.
just to second that, the community that you want to make content or things for is the community you should be immersing yourself in. I'm here now, but I haven't seen a straight person in 9 days. I think that I truly believe that if you immerse, as you're to the point that you're making, if you really insert yourself in the community, they'll notice. And when it's time for you to take that leap or to go further up, everyone around you will advocate to you because you clocked all the hours with that community.
I think for Joe's success as well, you were theater people, you came from a certain background, but you've really dove into comedy in New York in a way that has been your competitive advantage. You just decided we were going to be the conquerors of this arena in podcasting for New York, and you've done a really excellent job. How do you wade into a really, frankly, and I would say the same thing for all three of you, but how do you wade into that intimidating a group of people and say, hey, I'm Joe, I have a podcast network, come make podcasts with me instead of Earwolf or Maximum Fun or any of these big brand name podcast folk?
How did we do that? Because if you work really hard and you're really nice, sort of what Amy and Fran were saying, then people will respect you and they'll want to be a part of your thing. So it's not like I go out every night like Fran does. And Fran and I work together. So Fran and I kind of are the opposite. I almost never go out. I used to go out more. But why do people come to me then? Or why would they work with us? It's because when they come to us, we've created a space that they can be proud of, that they're built a community around our brand that people want to be a part of. I think it's special. We've trusted our gut time and time again. We just know what we think is funny, who we think is talented, who we want to surround ourselves with, and we're super careful about who those people are. And I think that because of that, we've created something unique that separates us from sort of Maximum Fun or Earwolf or any of our quote-unquote competitors or whatever, and I hope to grow and develop in our specific way. That's different than them. Still funny, still comedy, but it's Forever Dog. It's a whole different thing. And we've just believed in our taste and developed our taste as a team for a very long time. And have we had shows that we've canceled because it just didn't fulfill our desire, it wasn't what we thought it was going to be? No doubt. But we try and try, And I think if you have people on your team that you actually trust that are going to work just as hard as you, and that means they're going to work every hour of every single day, and you can count on them and they can count on you, and then you offer that security to talented people, to smart people. If you say, I'm going to work just as hard for you as I work for my partners, for any other show, for any other talent, as hard as I would for myself, I'm going to give that to you. That's literally all I could offer at first, because we didn't even have a studio back in the day. All we had was some microphones, and we literally just promised to work as hard as humanly possible for people that we wanted to be part of the world we wanted to make.
Yeah,
and,
I think
that's how we grew.
That's a really important part. There's two big parts of that. Is the competitive advantage that Forever Dog has out there, and frankly, the departments when you're recruiting for people to work for you, is that it's a fun, good place that you'll be proud to work with, a good culture. Yeah. And that is really key. But the second part I would really second is the taste part. You know, lots of people are passionate. Lots of people want to work really hard. Not everybody gets to create content. You've been creating content for a long time. That's what you do for a living. You create content and you help other people create content. One of the key unifying elements with these three folks and many of the people who will create some of the best content you will ever see is taste. It is key. Understanding what your taste is, what your filter is, and then being able to articulate that is what has made each one of you successful. So, what do you like? What do you see coming up now? That's going to be if there was another creator out there, or another network generator out there, or another head of brand out there now, what are the things you're seeing that are bubbling up that are getting you super excited that maybe we didn't know about? Either new things or new things that are old and back again. I'll throw it to any one of you.
That's a tough one. You didn't prep us with that one.
No, I didn't.
What do we see?
But you're super cool people, so you should know.
People.
Joe, what's your favorite podcast that I should be listening to right now?
Food for thought.
Oh my
There's
God,
a new one
loving
you have
all
to
this love.
subscribe to.
Beyond.
Beyond. Everyone's supposed to take out
Actually,
their phone
here,
and also
okay.
subscribe.
So here's a lesson for you. While these people think about things that they should know off the top of their heads because they're tastemakers, and that's why they're up here, but whatever. We want to prove how easy it is to be your own kind of brand and create change out there for a piece of content that you are promoting. So Forever Dog has a new podcast called Beyond. Is that correct?
Yeah, Beyond with Mike Kelton.
If you all log on right now and subscribe on iTunes on your iPhones right now, we can get that podcast to pop probably in the top 50 podcasts on iTunes today. So do that right now.
You got to do
Yeah,
it. You got
that's
to take out your
great.
phone.
This is awesome.
Take out
This
your
is
phones
unexpected
right
but
now.
I'll tell you a
exciting.
lesson
Go to your
while you do
iTunes,
it.
take out your
Go to your
phones.
iTunes, take it out. You should also do Food
And
for
yeah,
Thought.
subscribe to Food for
While
Thought
you're
as well.
there.
That's
Yeah,
We're
right.
gonna do
Actually,
Beyond,
subscribe, forget
and we're
Beyond.
gonna do Food for
Do
Thought.
it for
Yeah.
Food. That's food. The
So do
number
y'all know how to
4.
subscribe to podcasts?
Food, the number 4.
Yay or nay?
Yeah,
you know
do
where
you know
your
how to
podcast
subscribe
app
to a
is?
podcast? All right, do it now. And
All right,
we
you got
can- we
two
can
great
prove to you.
choices. You can go with Food for
So-
Thought.
I do think a lesson there, though, is we're in the back and we're all chatting up a storm before we get out here, but I truly believe in a partnership. And I think something you were mentioning earlier that I think is very, very important is I grew up in a world of patriarchal business organizations where it was all about getting it for themselves and how do I make the most money. And I believe those days are gone, that everything is about partnership. And the way to get ahead is truly find partners. You mentioned earlier, it's your first year out. You're making enough to kind of survive. I hope one day you make a ton of money, but I think there's an expectation now of how big and how much money do you want or how happy do you want to be. They do not equate. And I think that's a lesson no one teaches us. We're all taught to climb up and get as much money as possible, but in the creative space, happiness is an amazing thing to make the things you want to make, and that might be that you're sacrificing a large dollar for that. I think when you're extremely great at it and you have taste and you execute well, there's potential, absolutely. But if you could do that and be partnered with a lot of people and support one another, support someone else's art instead of thinking it's all competitive, and I think that's important. So when I heard they didn't ask for the subscription earlier, I didn't say, oh, I have to plug Refinery. And trust me, we have podcasts too. But it was much, I think there's a way to constantly say, let me support you. How do I help you?
Thank you.
And it sounds like you were doing that when you built the podcast company too. It's like, hey, I'm your partner. I'm not doing this to just make money off you and
that's
all
how
your
this,
sweat.
that's how this emerging economy is being made. You know, the Fran's of the world can survive and make a good industry for themselves because we all, you know, that's how we all network together.
Yeah, I wanted to build on something you're saying actually, because I mean, I'll use the example of podcasting, but like I feel like this is applicable in a lot of different fields. Like there are really just two tracks to success in like how you might build yourself up in podcasting specifically. For podcasting, there's like track A, you're a celebrity or you have a lot of notoriety or a pre-built audience or a ton of money or all this or a network, and not a very good podcast maybe, but like you immediately have 1 million listeners, and that trickles down into an audience. And then there's track B of like people who work really, really, really hard and have a really great taste and a good thing that they're making in podcasting. And when you are in that track B, and I assume that everyone in this audience would be in track B, and not in track A where you're making like Pod Save America or like a Malcolm Gladwell podcast, but like with this you have to believe in like the trickle up effect, you know, like you have to believe that your audience is going to advocate for you upward. Food for Thought was approached by 4 or 5 different networks, which we all ended up turning down because we found one that was really beautiful. And a lot better than that, but like we would get on the phone with these network people, and they would be like, yeah, you know, I haven't really listened to your podcast yet, but my intern loves you, which is like a shitty thing to say on the phone, but, and I was immediately turned off, but like, it's because that intern advocated upward for us. We were approached to develop our podcast into a TV show because like the PR assistant brought this to their boss in like a pitch meeting. We're introduced to like live events, we're introduced to every single opportunity because our kind of grassroots audience, which is like a marginalized audience, which is a queer audience, are in the rooms with people a lot more powerful and important than them and advocating upward. So yeah, I think that.
Yeah,
I really believe
and I think the lesson here is that you don't have to be queer as a profession to make it work. You just have to be your authentic self. That's what is working is, you know, that authenticity, especially when you talk about podcasting, because it's such a close relationship. You're in the person's ear. It has to be authentic because it really is quick when it rings untrue. But that's true on all platforms too, on Instagram, on YouTube. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say we're producing for someone else because I think not everyone is going to have, like I said, I'm here by accident, but for a job, I support other voices, and like I like that place better. I think that I can identify when someone like should be heard because they have a unique POV or underrepresented, and it's really an awesome feeling to feel like I am going to do whatever you need to do and what's your vision, and I want to help you succeed in your vision. And producing is an amazing thing with that. It's not always about if you don't have that voice, find someone you truly believe in and help them create their art. And I think to be an artist, everybody needs a great producer partner, because if you just live in your own bubble, you also can, you know, you're just preaching to yourself.
And that's what you and Joe do. You build the machine, and then you work with artists, and you plug into it. I mean, are there voices now that you feel that you're looking for, or again, is there something that you see out there in the marketplace that you just, I wish I had one of those, or this is what's coming next? Joe, I'd ask you the same thing. Are there young up-and-coming artists, or frankly, is there something that you're looking for in particular that you think is missing from the marketplace? Or on the flip side, does anybody out here have any questions? We have a microphone in the audience. You can ask any of these 3 folks a question. How about you?
Yeah, so when you were first starting out, like what would So when you're first starting out, like at your initial stages, did it take time to gain supporters? Like, I mean, how hard was it? Like, what was it like, kind of?
There's really there's no like measurement for how long it might take to either gather an audience or to accrue the kind of support that you want. I mean, I moved to New York 5 years ago with no job, no money, no apartment, no network or friends, like literally zero. And you know, it's been 5 years, and now, you know, I'm here at this stage of where I'm at, which is still, you know, in a median level of what people would consider a success in the industry or in writing. But yeah, I think that there's no real measurement for success. You just have to
No, and success, once you reach a certain level, it changes, or it doesn't actually change, but in your head it changes, yada, yada. All there is just sort of working day in and day out. And, like Amy and Fran and Evan all said, building something you believe in, because that makes it a whole heck of a lot easier to work all day and all night, which you will be if you want to be, quote unquote, successful. Yeah.
Even if that means joining a larger enterprise that you believe in too. I think, making choices.
You believe in it, and it's I think it's actually inspiring. Hear you guys talk, like business doesn't have to be like on TV where everyone is trying to kill each other, and people do try to do that, and it's really distasteful to me and to sounds like other business professionals and industry leaders. There's plenty of nice business people where you can believe in the art, and then there's money in things that you believe in. I feel like we've been told our whole lives, like, oh, there's no market for that, but that's been proven time and time again to be just so wildly inaccurate. And we've all made careers working in marketplaces that don't have an audience, but they have huge audiences. So there's no like limitations to that as well, I feel.
I also find there's really no overnight success. So you've got to pace yourself, and that's why you've got to do something you really love and believe in, because you could be doing it for 10 years before someone notices. So if the only goal is, I'm going to do this, and in a year's time, I'm going to have 100,000 followers, and this is what it's going to be, you can have what we call SIGs, self-imposed goals. But at the same time, like, just have some expectation. Most of the people who get like a random hashtag that hits overnight and the viral sensations, if you speak to them, they themselves had no idea that was coming. It was a fluke. We can build something, a massive organization, which by the way is a tiny organization compared to the conglomerates that are our opponents, and it could still take us a year to get 30,000 followers on an Instagram channel because we are doing it organically. We're not buying it. So you have to have patience and really go through that and engage with your audience and find the right people. And truthfully, your partner there is your audience. What do they want? Who is listening? How do you tailor to that? And how do you work with them? But I don't know of anyone who says, oh, unless you buy it, and it's not the right audience for you if that's what you're doing.
And I give a talk on podcast marketing, and the end of the presentation is always like, prioritize like success and money second. Like the thing that you're making, the thing that you want to build is so much more important and everything else will follow suit if you're doing it right. And another thing is that like if it's not hard, you're not doing it right. It's hard because it's hard, and everyone here works really, really, really hard. We clock nights and weekends and sleepless evenings and a lot of heartbreak and rosé, and that's Yeah,
I mean, what I think we all share is that there's an opportunity to make money, and we'd all like to earn a living. But you have to determine what you're going to do even if you're not getting paid, because that's important too, because that's the thing that will ultimately get you out of bed every morning even when things are hard, because there is always going to be a hard part. Even in big jobs and in small jobs, there's going to be a hard part. Any other questions out there?
I'm so glad that you guys talked about large and small jobs. Hi, my name is Taylor Hamilton. I'm over on your left-hand side, I believe.
Got it.
I am a student at Syracuse University, and I'm so happy that you guys have a panel that actually encompasses large businesses and small-scale businesses. My question today is particularly about work culture and avoiding the burnout. As creatives, I know it is important that we are diligent in our work and we do everything that we can in order for it to get done. But at a certain point, especially now in an era where mental health is important, there's just times where we cannot. How do you combat that, and how do you even avoid yourself from getting to that point in the first place?
I'm a Taurus rising with a Virgo moon. So I really I'm addicted to work. I'll have like a day where like I wake up at 5:30 a.m. and I go to bed at like midnight, and I've been working that entire time, and by the time I go to bed, I'm just like vibrating. It's like the best day ever. So I am not the person to ask this question. This is controversial, but I kind of believe that burnout is inevitable if you're working if you're kind of really, really, really too good at your job. And I think that there are a lot of ways to kind of make burnout less often, like basic self-care, monitoring time that's just for you, knowing when you need to clock in and clock out. I think those are great ways to moderate your time, but I do believe that if you're doing a good job, you're gonna burn out eventually. It's just a matter of like how many times you'll burn out, and hopefully that is just less and less as you get the swing of your work life.
Okay.
I'd kind of go off Fran's answer there. Burnout is real, but there's some sort of like sick gear inside of some of us that just refuse. It's like this horrible energy.
It's called New York City.
It refuse.
It is one thing we all tend to have who live here. Yeah.
I have this like Christmas plan, I have this idea about Christmas where I will rest, even though I know it will be like with family, and that plan will not happen. I won't rest, but I think like Fran's saying though, because mental health is important, and because like we all struggle with mental health issues, and I always need to chill out, and the burnout, it can get very real, and you just want to like lay in bed and hide, and you just want to like all your problems to go away, and that happens all the time to me. I think the only way to combat that is to find those tiny moments, because there's hours are so few and far between, but tiny moments of weekend time or night time where you do just decide for, even if it's like for an hour, you're gonna just sometimes I turn my phone off. Like last night, it was late and I was gonna watch a show, and I turned my phone off for that hour, even though I wasn't planning on looking at my phone the whole time, because when my phone buzzes, I have, oh my God, my company is on fire, and Fran's trapped in a hole, and I gotta save him. But I unfortunately, the only answer is to make sure you prioritize those little moments of rest and care for yourself. But there's not gonna be there's no solution. There's just doing the best that you can, and then pretending you're fine, but not professionally, not to your friends. To your friends and family.
He
you
is
have to tell
not
the
a paid
truth.
mental health professional.
Obviously needs help.
It's also like if you're a calendar freak like me, like I'm a calendar freak. Like I have like blocked off time, what you call like
That's really
untouchable
good.
time,
Yeah.
and that's like for me, that's jogging, manicures, going to the movies alone. Like, and it looks different for everybody. Like I love going to a movie alone because then I can't look at my phone. I just like have my Whole Foods snacks. I'm just there watching
I
Crazy
like-
Rich Asians.
Yeah. I like the 10 a.m. movie.
Amy.
I literally am a workaholic. I come from an alcoholic who's doing great right now. My father's 20 years sober, but I know that gene is in me, and I get a high off working. I luckily love what I do. But as I'm getting older, I got pneumonia this year and had to learn what work-life balance is, which I don't believe in. But I started to realize that life is really long, and I just need to figure out when I'm gonna pull myself in whole hog. The next 3 months, no one will see me, including my family. And I think, you need a supportive circle around you, because when you want to work like that, my life changed. 2 kids, husband, okay, great, parents, practically live in my house and raise my kids, because I said, no one is going to see me for 2 years. I've got an opportunity, and I am going to put my entire self in it. But when that is done, we will all have a different life, and we will be able to do more things together, and I want to be able to provide. So I had to look at it as like a 5-year balance. Pneumonia hits, and then you find acupuncture. And now I do that once a week, and that's my solid hour. But I think for this generation, you're really the first to start a good habit. We definitely were not. And you guys could start the gym and start those habits so it's so natural to your work cycle in a way that we just didn't have back then. So that's always one of my tips that I actually tell everybody is like, what could I have done differently? And I wish I would have gotten a gym habit much earlier in life, because even if it would have only been an hour a week, I think it would have really been something I could have just naturally done, and I didn't. And trying to learn that in your 40s ain't fun.
Yeah,
So start now.
Yeah, so just to round that out, as the oldest person on the panel, you either have that trigger inside you or you don't. And so that workaholic thing is a very competitive advantage in the marketplace. I tend to hire people who are neurotic like that, so it works out really well for me. But the other thing is exercise. It's hard to emphasize how important exercise is to staying well, mentally and physically. And then lastly, the thing I've learned, especially in the last 20 years, is the idea of a work-life balance presents them as things that are at odds with each other. That is not true. You can design a work life and a life that are complementary of each other, that are all oars in the skull going in the same direction at the same time. But that is a conscious choice that you have to make. You have to cohabitate with people who appreciate your passion for what you do, and loving what you do is really another way to kind of not burn out. So don't ever think that those two things, those choices have to be at odds with each other. They can complement each other. They should complement each other. And the more they do, the longer you probably will live. So thank you very much to everybody here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have no idea what's next, but I'm sure somebody will tell you.